A 7-year-old boy walked into a Mafia boss's bar, tears streaming down his face, and begged the most dangerous man in the city to attend his FBI agent mother's funeral. She died, hunting him. What happened next would turn a funeral into a war zone. The boy had walked 6 miles alone. Through streets his mother warned him never to cross after dark. He carried nothing but a crumpled piece of paper and a photograph he didn't fully understand. He said his mother had no one left, no colleagues brave enough to show, no family who hadn't turned their backs, just one little boy who didn't want his hero buried alone. "Hey kid, you lost?" Leonardo Ricci. Charcoal suit, neck tattoo, slicked back hair. Everyone in the city knew that face. Everyone feared it. "My name is Max Miller." The boy's voice broke. "My mom was Special Agent Sandra Miller." Every man in that room stopped breathing. Sandra Miller, the FBI agent who spent 5 years tearing the Ricci empire apart, dead 2 weeks ago in a raid gone wrong, and now her son stood 10 feet from the man she died trying to destroy. "What are you doing here, kid?" Dante, Leonardo's right hand, stepped forward. Max held up a crumpled funeral program, his mother's face on the front. "My mom's funeral is tomorrow, and nobody's coming." "What do you mean, nobody?" "The FBI said it's too dangerous. The people who killed her made threats. Anyone who shows up is next." His chin trembled. "They assigned 2 agents to stand guard. That's it. 2 strangers who have to be there." A tear hit the floor. "My mom saved people, and she's going to be buried with nobody but me. If you're still here, don't scroll, because what this boy pulls out next changes everything." Dante scoffed. "Kid, your mother tried to destroy us. Why would you come here?" Max reached into his pocket, pulled out a photograph, worn, creased. Sandra Miller, hair down, smiling, holding a little girl with dark curls. The girl was laughing. Leonardo's face went white. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us keep these stories alive, and trust me, the best part is yet to come. Now, let's get back to it. "Where did you get that?" "It was in my mom's things." Max turned it over. "Isabella Ricci, June 14th. Some things matter more than the badge." Nobody moved. 3 years ago, Leonardo's daughter was kidnapped. Sandra Miller found her alone. No backup, no report, no leverage. She walked Isabella to Leonardo's door at 4 a.m. and said 5 words. "She's safe. That's what matters." Then she vanished. Never used it against him. Never spoke of it again. Now her son stood in his bar, holding the only proof it ever happened. "Please." Max's voice shattered. "She saved your daughter when nobody else would. Will you come to my mom's funeral, so she's not alone?" Leonardo stared at the boy, at the photo, at tears cutting down a face that looked just like hers. His hands were shaking, the most powerful man in the city. Shaking. "Give us a minute, kid." The men filed into the back room. Max waited alone, clutching his mother's picture. Inside, voices clashed. "We can't go to a Fed's funeral." "The cartel will think we're choosing sides. He's a 7-year-old boy." Leonardo let them argue. Then he spoke. "That kid walked 6 miles in the dark, into a room full of his mother's enemies, and he begged us to bury her." He looked around slowly. "How many of you have children? How many would want your son standing alone at your grave?" Silence. "Sandra Miller gave me back my daughter. She didn't leverage it, didn't arrest me. She just did what was right." He placed both hands on the table. "Tomorrow we bury that debt. Every man here, every family that respects the code." He looked toward the door, toward the silhouette of a boy still waiting with nothing but a photograph and a prayer. "That boy's mother gets the funeral she deserves." His eyes went cold. And God help anyone who tries to stop it. The bar had seen a lot of things. Drug deals gone wrong, men who walked in and never walked out, conversations that decided who lived and who disappeared. But nobody had ever seen this. A 7-year-old boy, standing in the middle of the floor, surrounded by killers. Max didn't flinch, didn't run. He just stood there, small, trembling, completely alone. Leonardo set his whiskey down slowly. The glass made no sound against the wood. You walked 6 miles to get here. It wasn't a question. Through territory that would make grown men take a cab. In the dark, alone. Max nodded. Why? The boy's fingers tightened around the funeral program. Because my mom told me something about you once. She said you have a rule, that anyone who asks for help in your bar gets heard, no matter who they are. Dante let out a sharp laugh. Kid, your mother spent years trying to put everyone in this room behind bars, and you think we're going to… She said even bad men have codes. The laughter stopped. Leonardo leaned forward. His eyes narrowed. Your mother called me a bad man, and you still came. She called you a lot of things. Max's voice was quiet but steady. But she said that part was true. The part about the code. The room seemed to shrink. The air grew heavier. So you're here to test it, Leonardo said slowly, to see if the monster keeps his word. Max shook his head. I'm not here to test anything. I'm here because I don't have anywhere else to go. He looked around the room, at the hard faces, the cold eyes, the men who had every reason to throw him out, or worse. The FBI won't help. They told everyone to stay home. My family's gone. My mom's partners won't even return my calls. His voice cracked. I'm 7 years old, Mr. Ricci. I can't bury my mom by myself. Leonardo studied him for a long moment. The boy's reddened eyes, the wrinkled shirt, the way he held that funeral program like it was the only thing keeping him standing. You know what your mother did to my organization. Yes, sir. You know what she cost me. The men, the money, the years. Yes, sir. And you still walked into my bar, alone, to ask me for help. Max lifted his chin. Just slightly. Just enough. My mom always said doing the right thing means doing the hard thing, even when you're scared. He swallowed. I'm really scared right now, Mr. Ricci, but I'm still asking. Leonardo said nothing for a long moment. Then he looked at Dante, at his men lining the walls, at the weight of every decision he'd ever made pressing down on this single moment. He looked back at the boy. What exactly are you asking for, kid? Max took one step forward. I'm asking you to come to my mother's funeral, so she doesn't go into the ground alone. Dante was the first to break the silence. He stepped forward, jaw tight, fists clenched at his sides. 20 years in the Ricci organization had taught him to smell a trap from a mile away, and this, a dead feds kid walking into their bar alone, reeked of setup. Sandra Miller. He spat the name like poison. You know what your mother did to us, kid? Max didn't answer. She put 3 of our best guys in federal prison. Marco, Vincent, Tommy D. Dante's voice rose with each name. Good men. Men with families. She spent years building cases against us. Wiretaps, informants, surveillance. He pointed a thick finger at the boy. Your mother was the reason half this room has spent time behind bars. And you want us to show up at her funeral? Pay respects to the woman who tried to destroy everything we built? Murmurs rippled through the bar. Men shifted in their seats. The atmosphere curdled from tense to hostile. Dante's right, a voice from the back booth. This is a setup. FBI's probably parked outside right now. Cameras, microphones, waiting for us to make a move. We should throw him out. We should do more than that. Send a message. Max felt the room closing in, the faces around him hardened into stone. These weren't men who forgave. They weren't men who forgot. But he hadn't come this far to leave empty-handed. Wait. His voice came out small, almost swallowed by the hostility. Please. I have something else. He reached into his pocket. Slowly. Carefully. Every eye in the room tracked his hand like it might come out holding a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a photograph. Old. Creased. The edges worn soft from being handled too many times. I found this in my mom's things after she died. He held it up with trembling fingers. I don't know why she kept it, but I think you do. Leonardo hadn't moved from his seat, hadn't spoken since Dante started his tirade. But now something shifted. He rose slowly, crossed the room in 3 long strides, took the photograph from the boy's hand, and stopped breathing. The image showed Sandra Miller, out of uniform, hair down, smiling in a way her colleagues probably never saw. She was kneeling on what looked like a front porch, arms wrapped around a little girl with dark curly hair, brown eyes, a gap-toothed smile, Isabella, Leonardo's daughter. The room watched their boss stare at the photograph, watched the color drain from his face, watched his hand begin to shake, just slightly, in a way none of them had ever seen before. Where did you get this? His voice was barely a whisper. It was in a box, under her bed. Max's eyes were fixed on Leonardo's face. There's writing on the back. Leonardo turned the photograph over. Faded ink, his dead enemy's handwriting. Isabella Ricci, June 14th. Some things matter more than the badge. The room had gone completely silent. Dante stared at his boss. Leonardo, what is this? Leonardo didn't answer. He just kept staring at the photograph, at his daughter's face, at the woman who had saved her, the woman he'd spent years trying to destroy. 3 years ago. A night Leonardo Ricci had never spoken of. A night he would never forget. It started with a phone call at 2 a.m., his wife screaming. Isabella's bedroom window shattered, her bed empty, a note left on her pillow. You took from us. Now we take from you. The Caruso faction, a rival family Leonardo had humiliated 6 months earlier. They'd waited, planned, and struck where it would hurt most. His little girl, 7 years old, vanished into the night. Leonardo mobilized every man he had, every contact, every favor owed. He tore the city apart for 11 hours, turned over every rock, kicked down every door. Nothing. The police were useless. Half of them were on Caruso's payroll. The FBI wouldn't touch it. A mob boss's daughter wasn't exactly a priority case. He was alone, powerless. For the first time in his life, Leonardo Ricci had no move left to make. And then, at 4 a.m., his doorbell rang. He opened it expecting a ransom demand, a threat, a body. Instead, he found Sandra Miller. She stood on his porch in street clothes, no badge visible, no backup, no recording devices. Just her and Isabella, asleep in her arms, wrapped in a gray FBI windbreaker. Leonardo couldn't speak, couldn't move, could barely breathe. She's okay. Sandra's voice was calm, steady. Mild sedation, some bruises. But she's okay. She'll wake up in a few hours and won't remember most of it. He reached out, took his daughter, held her against his chest so tight he thought he might break her, felt her heartbeat against his, felt the tears streaming down his face before he even knew he was crying. How? The word came out, broken. I was on a stakeout, unrelated case, saw movement at a warehouse that didn't fit the pattern, went in alone to check it out. She paused. Found her in a back room, 2 guards. They won't be a problem anymore. Leonardo stared at her. This woman. This FBI agent. His enemy. Why? He didn't understand. Couldn't understand. Why bring her to me? Why not call it in? You could have used this. Leverage. Headlines. A mob boss's daughter rescued by the FBI. Sandra looked at Isabella, at the little girl sleeping peacefully in her father's arms. Because she's not a case file, she's not leverage. She's a 7-year-old girl who was scared and wanted her daddy. She met his eyes. Some things matter more than the badge, Mr. Ricci. Your daughter is one of them. She turned to leave. No demands, no conditions, no strings. Wait! Leonardo's voice stopped her. I owe you. Name your price. Anything. Sandra glanced back over her shoulder. Raise her well, that's all I want. And then she was gone. Disappeared into the darkness, like she'd never been there at all. Leonardo never told anyone, never spoke of it. But every single day for 3 years, he thought about the FBI agent who gave him back his daughter and asked for nothing in return. Now that woman was dead. And her son was standing in his bar, asking him to repay a debt he never thought he'd get the chance to honor. Leonardo handed the photograph back to Max. Gently, like it was made of glass. Wait here. He walked toward the back room without another word. His captains followed, Dante, Marco's brother Sal, Big Tony, and 3 others whose names Max didn't know. The door closed behind them with a heavy click. Max stood alone in the empty bar. The remaining soldiers watched him from the shadows. No one spoke. No one moved. Inside the back room, all hell broke loose. This is insane. Dante slammed his palm on the table. It's a setup, Leo. Has to be. The FBI loses one of their own, and suddenly her kid shows up at our door with a sob story? Come on. Sal nodded. Feds are probably circling the block right now. Cameras, wires, waiting for us to make one wrong move. And even if it's not a setup, Big Tony added, think about the optics. The Ricci family showing up to bury a federal agent? Every crew in the city will think we've gone soft, or worse, that we're cooperating. We'll have targets on our backs for months, another captain muttered. Dante leaned forward. Leonardo, I've followed you for 20 years, never questioned you. But this? He shook his head. This is suicide. The woman spent her career trying to destroy us. We show up at her funeral. We're spitting on everything we stand for. The room rumbled with agreement, heads nodding, voices overlapping. Leonardo sat at the head of the table, silent, still, his eyes fixed on a point somewhere beyond the walls. He let them talk, let them argue, let every objection fill the room until there was nothing left to say. Then he spoke. 3 years ago, my daughter was taken. The room went quiet. You all remember, 11 hours, no leads, no hope. I thought I'd lost her forever. His voice was low, controlled, but something raw flickered beneath the surface. And then Sandra Miller showed up at my door, alone, no backup, no cameras, my little girl in her arms. He looked around the table, met every pair of eyes. She could have called it in, could have used Isabella as leverage, could have built a case that would have buried me for good. He paused. Instead, she handed me my daughter and walked away. Asked for nothing, told no one. Dante opened his mouth. Leonardo silenced him with a look. That woman gave me back the only thing in this world I cannot live without, and she never held it over my head, not once, not in 3 years of investigations, not even when she had me cornered. He stood slowly, placed both hands flat on the table. Now she's dead, and her son, her 7-year-old son, walked 6 miles alone through the dark to ask for my help. His jaw tightened. I don't care about the FBI. I don't care about optics. I don't care what other families think. His voice dropped to something cold. Final. She gave me back my daughter. I bury my debts. That's the end of it. No one argued. No one dared. The call went out at midnight. Leonardo didn't make requests. He made statements, and tonight his statement was simple. Sandra Miller's funeral would not be empty. Every man who owed the Ricci family would be there, no exceptions. Within the hour, phones started ringing across the city. Capos woke their crews. Soldiers ironed suits they hadn't worn since their last court appearance. Drivers pulled black SUVs out of garages and checked the gas. Word spread through back rooms and basement card games, through late-night diners and private clubs that didn't exist on any map. Leonardo Ricci was calling in every favor, every debt, every marker accumulated over 30 years of blood and business. And no one said no. By 2 a.m., the news had jumped beyond Ricci territory. The Castellano family in Brooklyn heard about it from a shared associate. Don Castellano himself made a call to Leonardo, not to question, but to confirm. The FBI agent who saved Isabella? Yes. We'll send 12 men. Consider it a gift. The Moretti crew in Queens followed. Then the Albanians from the Bronx. Then a delegation from the Russian syndicate in Brighton Beach. Men who rarely attended anything that didn't directly benefit their bottom line. But this was different. This wasn't business. This was code. A debt was being paid, publicly, openly. And in the underworld, that meant something. It meant Leonardo Ricci was a man of his word. It meant honor still existed in a world that had forgotten the meaning. By 4 a.m., the number had passed 60. By dawn, it crossed 100. Max had fallen asleep on a bench in the corner of La Stella Nera, the photograph still clutched in his hand. He woke to the sound of voices, movement, the rumble of engines outside. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. The bar was full. Men everywhere. Dark suits, polished shoes, hard faces that softened, just slightly, when they looked at him. Dante appeared beside him with a cup of hot chocolate. "Drink this, kid. It's going to be a long day." Max took the cup with trembling hands. "How many people are coming?" Dante glanced toward the window. Black SUVs lined the street as far as the eye could see. More arriving every minute. "Enough." Leonardo emerged from the back room. He'd changed into a black suit, black tie, black shirt. He looked like he was attending a state funeral or declaring war. He stopped in front of Max. "Your mother is not going to be buried alone. I promise you that." He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Today, she gets the send-off she deserved." Max's eyes filled with tears. Why are all these people helping? They didn't even know her. Leonardo looked out at the army, assembling in his name. Soldiers, criminals, killers, all of them standing ready to honor a woman who had spent her life trying to put them away. "Because in our world, kid, debts are sacred. And your mother was owed more than she ever knew." The funeral director had been in the business for 32 years. He'd buried politicians, mobsters, cops. Once, a man who'd been on the FBI's most wanted list for a decade. But he'd never seen anything like this. At 9:47 a.m., the first black SUV pulled up outside Morrison & Sons' funeral home. Then another. Then another. Within 15 minutes, the entire street was lined with vehicles. Escalades, Navigators, blacked-out sedans stretching 2 blocks in either direction. Men in dark suits stepped out. One by one. Dozens of them. Then scores. Their faces were hard. Their eyes were harder. They moved with the quiet discipline of soldiers filing toward the entrance in pairs. The director stood frozen at the front door, his clipboard shaking in his hands. "I'm sorry. There must be some mistake." His voice cracked. This service was only expecting 2 attendees. Dante stepped forward, adjusted his cufflinks. "Plans changed." The men kept coming. They filled the pews in silence. Row after row, shoulder to shoulder. The small chapel had seating for 80. By the time the last man entered, they were standing 3 deep along the walls, 114 men, all dressed in black, all there to bury an FBI agent. Across the street, 2 bureau sedans sat parked at the curb. The agents inside watched through tinted windows, phones pressed to their ears, voices tense. "We've got over 100 known associates in there. Ricci, Castellano, Moretti, even some Russians." The voice on the other end crackled. "Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. We're not starting a war at a funeral." "But sir, this is—" I said, "Stand down. Observe only." The agents exchanged looks. They were outnumbered 10-1, outgunned, and they knew it. Inside the chapel, Max walked down the center aisle. His footsteps echoed against the polished floor. Every head turned to watch him. This small boy in his wrinkled suit, moving toward the front pew where his mother's casket waited. Closed casket, polished mahogany, draped with white lilies. He sat down alone in the first row. The wood creaked beneath him. For a moment, the weight of it all pressed down, the silence, the stares, the enormity of what was happening. Then he felt someone sit beside him. Leonardo. The Mafia boss said nothing, just sat there, hands folded, eyes forward. On Max's other side, Dante settled into the pew. Then Big Tony. Then men whose names Max would never know. The front row filled completely. Hardened criminals flanking a 7-year-old boy, protecting him, honoring him. Max looked up at his mother's casket, at the photograph resting on top. Her smiling face, her badge, her bright eyes that would never open again. His chest ached, his throat tightened. But for the first time since she died, he didn't feel alone. He had walked into a den of monsters and found something his mother always believed existed. Humanity, hidden in the darkest places. She was right. The priest finished his prayers. The chapel fell silent. And then came the moment Max had been dreading since the night his mother didn't come home. He had to speak. His legs felt like concrete as he walked to the podium. The wood was too tall for him. He could barely see over the top. Someone brought a small step stool. He climbed up, gripping the edges with white knuckles. 114 faces stared back at him. Killers, criminals, men who had done things he couldn't imagine, and they were waiting for him to speak. Max pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. He'd written something last night. Words that didn't feel like enough. Words that could never be enough. His voice came out small, broken. "My mom was Special Agent Sandra Miller." He swallowed hard. "But to me, she was just Mom." The paper trembled in his hands. "She worked late a lot. Sometimes she missed my soccer games. Sometimes she forgot to pick me up from school because she was chasing bad guys." A shaky breath. "I used to get mad at her for that. I didn't understand why her job was more important than me." A tear slipped down his cheek. "But she always said the same thing when she got home. She'd sit on my bed and hold my hand and say, 'Max, doing right is hard. It's the hardest thing in the world, but it's the only thing that matters.'" His voice cracked. "I didn't really know what that meant. I was just a kid. I wanted my mom to be there for my birthday. I wanted her to watch movies with me on Saturdays. I wanted her to stop missing dinner." He looked up at the casket, at the photograph of her smiling face. "Now I'll never have dinner with her again. And I still don't understand why." The room was completely still. No coughs, no shifting, just silence so heavy it pressed against the walls. "I don't know why she had to die. I don't know why the bad guys won." His chin quivered. "But I know she would be proud today, because people came, people she didn't even know." He looked out at the crowd, at the hard faces, the dark suits, the men who had every reason to hate his mother. "She always said there's good in everyone, even in people who do bad things. She said you just have to look hard enough to find it." His eyes found Leonardo in the back row. "I think she was right." Leonardo sat motionless. His sunglasses hid his face. But as Max spoke those final words, he reached up slowly and removed them. His eyes were wet, red-rimmed. Human. Max stepped down from the podium. He walked back to the front pew and sat beside his mother's casket. And behind him, 114 men sat in silence, some of them crying for the first time in years. The service ended with a hymn Max's mother used to hum while making breakfast. He didn't sing along. He couldn't. His throat was too tight, his chest too hollow. The pallbearers rose, 6 of Leonardo's most trusted men. They lifted the casket with practiced reverence and began the slow walk toward the cemetery behind the chapel. Max followed, his small hand gripping the funeral program like an anchor. 114 men filed out behind them, silent, disciplined, a river of black suits flowing through the doors and into the gray morning light. And then the cars appeared. 3 black sedans. No plates. Tinted windows. They rolled up the street slowly, engines growling, and stopped at the cemetery gates. Max felt the shift before he understood it. The men around him tensed. Hands moved toward waistbands. Eyes narrowed. Dante stepped close to Leonardo. Vargas cartel. The ones who... I know who they are. The cartel had sent the message before Sandra's body was even cold. Anyone who mourns her dies next. They'd scared off the FBI, scattered her colleagues, left a 7-year-old boy to bury his mother alone. Now they'd come to finish the job. To prove their threats weren't empty. To remind the city who really held the power. The sedan doors began to open. Leonardo moved. He didn't run, didn't shout. He simply walked forward, calm, deliberate, and stopped directly in front of the cemetery gates. His men followed without a word. They fanned out beside him, shoulder to shoulder, a wall of black suits and cold eyes stretching across the entrance. Behind them, more men formed a second line, then a third. They surrounded the casket completely, surrounded Max completely. The cartel soldiers paused, 1 foot out of the lead vehicle, then 2. They saw the wall, they counted the bodies, and they understood. 114 men, armed, ready, waiting. Against what? 12? 15 at most? The odds weren't close. They weren't even in the same universe. Leonardo stepped forward. Just 1 step. His hands stayed at his sides. His face revealed nothing. But his eyes said everything. Try it. Please. Give me a reason. The standoff lasted 10 seconds. Maybe less. It felt like an hour. Then the cartel soldier slid back into his seat. The door closed. The engine revved. 1 by 1, the 3 sedans reversed. Slowly, at first. Then faster. They disappeared around the corner without a single shot fired, without a single word spoken. The threat that had terrorized an entire federal agency had just been erased by a wall of silent men and a single, unblinking stare. Max watched the cars vanish. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Leonardo turned back, walked to where the boy stood frozen, placed a hand on his shoulder. No one's going to hurt you, kid. Not today. Not ever. For the first time, Max believed it. The last handful of dirt fell onto the casket. The priest said his final words, and 1 by 1, the men in black began to leave, slipping away as quietly as they had come. Max stood alone at the graveside. The freshly turned earth smelled like rain and endings. A woman approached. Gray coat. Tired eyes. She looked like his mother, but older, worn down by years of distance and regret. Max, her voice cracked. I'm your Aunt Catherine, your mom's sister. He remembered the name, remembered his mother crying once after a phone call that went unanswered. I know I haven't been there. I know I don't deserve to be here now. She knelt down. But I'm not leaving you alone, not anymore. Max nodded slowly. He didn't have the energy to feel angry, didn't have the strength to ask why she hadn't come sooner. A man in a gray suit walked over. The attorney. He carried a sealed envelope. "Max, your mother left this with me. Her instructions were very specific." He handed over the envelope. "Only to be opened after she was gone. Only by you." Max's hands trembled as he tore the seal. Inside was a single page, his mother's handwriting, the loops and curves he'd seen on birthday cards and permission slips and notes tucked into his lunchbox. He read it silently. "My dearest Max, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And I'm so sorry I couldn't stay longer. Being your mom was the greatest thing I ever did. There's something I never told you. Something I never told anyone. 3 years ago, I saved a little girl. Her name was Isabella. Her father is a man named Leonardo Ricci, a man I spent my career trying to put away. I could have used her as leverage, could have destroyed him. But when I held that scared little girl in my arms, I saw something I'd almost forgotten. Even in the darkest men, there is a light waiting to be seen. You just have to look hard enough. I don't know what kind of world you'll grow up in, Max. But I know this. Never stop believing in people. Even the ones who seem beyond saving. Especially them. You have my heart. You always will. Love forever, Mom." Max didn't realize he was crying until the tears hit the paper. He felt a presence behind him. Leonardo, reading over his shoulder. The Mafia boss was silent for a long moment. Then he knelt down, bringing himself to Max's eye level. "She was right about one thing, kid." His voice was rough, thick. "You've got her courage." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small card. "A trust fund, anonymous, for your future, college, whatever you need." He pressed it into Max's hand. "Consider the debt paid." Max looked up at him. "Thank you. For everything." Leonardo nodded once, then stood and walked away. Max turned toward his aunt, toward whatever came next. But at the cemetery gate, he looked back one last time. Leonardo stood beside his car. He met the boy's eyes, and offered a single nod. Respect, redemption. A debt finally paid. If this story has your attention, hit that subscribe button and let us know where in the world you're watching from. Every story we tell connects the past to the present, and we'd love to have you with us for the next one.